everyone, welcome back to the Turo 100 series. Oh my goodness, I have been out sick for several weeks. I got mega sick, and that is sometimes just how life goes. So it has taken me a minute to get back into the studio, but I am so excited to come back and get back to work developing this series for you guys, going over every single thing that you need to know to run and successfully host your Turo cars on the platform. Now, a topic that is really near and dear to me is how to price your vehicles properly and most efficiently to get the most money out of your cars on the Turo platform. Now, there's a lot of nuances to this and many different schools of thoughts, but this is something that I track actually on a weekly basis. Now, if you're in my powerhouse.club community, then you know every Monday we go over and do a market recap, look at market pricing, and look at exactly what is going on with price points and how cars are renting at different day rates. Now, this is super crucial because this is quite literally where your margins will come from. And sometimes people take kind of the route of set it and forget it, just use Turo's automatic pricing. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to yield you the best results. So we are going to dive into exactly how best to tackle this. I'm going to do some screen shares here. And we are actually going to look at the market in the same way that I do on my communities on Mondays, and we are going to dissect these day rates. So let's dive in. Okay, friends, so here we are looking at an old listing of mine. I recently sold this car, talked about it in a different video, but I just want to show you guys, for those of you that are newer to the platform, kind of what the backend looks like and what your pricing options look like. There are tons of features here, and sometimes it can actually overcomplicate the way that you should set your listings. So here, the first and foremost, you are going to have the option for automatic pricing, right? And if you just switch this toggle on just like this, you're going to see that Turo is automatically going to set a price range for your vehicle, with the minimum price here for this Audi TT being $50 and the maximum being $157. Now that is a huge range, right? That is a range of $107 difference between the high and the low, which can make it really hard to sort of predict and estimate how much money you're going to make on your day rate. But that is the nature of how automatic pricing works. Now, let's say you want to refine this range a little bit, because as you'll see in the market research that we do in a couple minutes here, maybe the market is nowhere near this range. So you know that there's no way you're going to get $157 for this car. So what you can do is actually adjust your max and your minimum pricing. So let's just say the maximum pricing that this Audi is going to get is about $90 per day. We know that because of what we're seeing in the market. So now I'm going to adjust that range between 50 and 90, and Turo will manage the calendar for the month according to the range that you have set because of the data that you have collected. Now, alternatively, you do have the option to turn off automatic pricing and then just set all of your own manual pricing, right? So you can definitely do that as well. And here they have the recommended price as $74. Now, usually what Turo does to really come up with those price points is that they take a look at similar cars in your area or the exact type of car in maybe a 25-mile radius, and they take a look at what the performance is on those cars, and then they will recommend a day rate. However, that is not always accurate, which is why I am a huge proponent of doing market research, and we'll go over that in a second. Now, another option that they have is last-minute booking prices, where they encourage you to do a 5% boost in pricing for anyone that is looking to book last minute, and you earn a little extra from that percentage boost. Now, finally, they have a huge range of options to provide a discount, right? You can do a 3-day discount recommended at 10%, a 1-week discount recommended at 15%, 2 weeks at 25%, and it goes on and on up to 2 months, right? And then also they have an early bird discount option, meaning if somebody is renting your car 7 days in advance, meaning they are placing that booking, they can get a 5% discount. So there is a lot to really ingest here or digest here and to take in, right? So let's talk about what are some of the best practices. Now, one of the features that I really like here to really gain a better understanding is because when you are looking at the pricing settings, it can be quite arbitrary. You can think to yourself, oh, I would like to offer a 20% discount, but what does that actually mean when it comes to your earnings? Because a lot of times what happens is host will apply the recommended discounts, but then when a reservation happens and you get your earnings and you see how slim they might look, you're like, shoot, what attributed to that, right? So you really have to know how these discounts and price points play a role in, your listings and your earnings, right? So one of the things that I like here is Turo has this feature at the top of pricing, which is how much will I earn? So if your day rate is $74 a day and you're applying a 15% discount per day, then the total trip price is going to be $440, right? So 74 times 7. Now this is on the host end. And then after you give up your cut of the money, you'll bring in $330 for the week, right? With that day rate and that discount. So you have to really discern for yourself whether or not that's a good number. If you times that by, let's say, 3 weeks, because you're getting, 3/4 of the month booked out, 66% of your calendar is booked, then, you can sort of discern, okay, if I'm getting a couple weeks booked out of the month, or I'm just getting 2 weeks, maybe I'm getting 2.5 weeks. Do these earnings really suffice for what it is that I'm trying to achieve in terms of my financial goals? So that's a really nice way to look at it, because they didn't used to have that, and you would set your discounts and then you would kind of have to manually sort of figure out, okay, if somebody books at these many days and they take a 15% discount, how much will I end up earning, right? So that's something to consider as well. Now, in terms of best practices and all the many, many years that I've done this, I actually have always loved Turo's automatic pricing, right? And I think automatic pricing is a fantastic tool to utilize, but it needs a little bit of the human touch, right? It needs some of our own human intelligence to tell it, hey, you know what? This is a little bit more accurate to my market based on the research that I've done. So typically what I've always done is I've used automatic pricing, but I will often adjust the minimum and maximum range, or I will actually go into my booking calendar and adjust specific days, especially if it's, a big weekend coming up like 4th of July weekend or Labor Day weekend, Memorial Day weekend. And that generally people have a 3 to 4 day holiday weekend. They're traveling, they're going to be renting cars, meaning you can get kind of a peak day rate that would be above, let's say, my maximum price of 90. Then you can go ahead and make a manual adjustment to those days, again, yielding you the most gain for profitability on your vehicles. Now, what does that look like? So one of the things that Turo has started doing is offering insights for your bookings, right? And this is where our market research is going to begin. Again, very data driven, right? Because if you're going to put in the time to rent your car out, your labor is the same, right? No matter what the day rate is, the time and effort that you're putting in, it's going to be the same. So why not get the most money that you can per day for your vehicle by doing a little bit of market research? So we're going to start right here. Now, Turo's back end, right, under their calendar setting, it's going to give you some insights about booking trends in your area. And again, here they're using a 25-mile radius, and they are showing you, okay, in previous months, right? So since last April up until March of this year, roughly this is what cars are being booked out for, right? So you can see on the weekends and weekdays, our pink trend line is telling us weekend dates, and our purple is giving us weekdays. Now, you can also see some of the sample cars that they might be considering to compare against your own. So, of course, obviously the most similar being a 2017 Audi TT, whereas I had a 28. It's roughly going for about, $59 per day, and it has medium utilization. Then they are comparing it against an Infiniti Q60 2017 that has high utilization, and it's going for 47 to 42. So you can really go through this list and say, okay, I can kind of see, what people are renting their cars out for. And, mileage wise, 41 miles away is really far away from where I'm located, and we're probably not catering to the same audience. So This is why it's so important to do your own market research, because even through Turo's very own booking insights, it is not as accurate as you will be when you do your own market research. But this is just going to give you a general idea, right? You can generally sort of see in the broader market how similar cars are performing, okay? So we want to start there. Now, what can we tell from this information right away is Turo recommended for my car over here. The lowest recommendation was 50, the highest was 157. And if I turn off automatic pricing, then they are recommending a day rate of $74. Now, in comparison to here, their minimum recommended price of $50 is the closest to what we're actually seeing happening in the market. And we know the high end of 157 is way, way off because we're not anywhere near that ballpark from anything we're seeing in the market. And then we know that the day rate of $74 that was suggested is not that close either, right? Because surprisingly, on the Turo marketplace, $5 or $10 actually makes a massive difference to, the renter and what they are looking for. So it's very important to keep in tune to that, because it makes a big difference. Because to us as hosts, we're like, oh, 5, 10, $15, no big deal. But to the market, it's a huge deal. And that's why I want to show you guys how to do market research, because it's very important. So for me, we're going to look at my area, right? So I typically cater to people traveling into John Wayne Airport. That's my local airport. I'm not far away from it at all. We're talking about a 10 to 15 minute drive max. So that is kind of like the highest input of renters. The highest volume of renters are coming in through this point of interest, being John Wayne Airport. So that's why when Turo shows me results for cars that are 40, 50 miles away from me, I know that that is a different market, right? They're really looking at a lot of cars that are based in LA, whereas I'm based in Orange County. So kind of a bigger difference there. So now what I like to do is I like to search out, we're searching out a couple weeks, we're looking in at John Wayne, and we're going to start pulling cars from the search results that are, I think, in the similar category realm as an Audi TT, right? In that same sort of vein as the Audi TT. And I would consider this BMW 3 Series to be one of them. Now, one of the things that you'll notice if you've been on Turo for a while is that instead of showing you the day rate here on the search results, Turo is actually now starting to show you the total price of the trip, right? And so that's going to give our research one more additional step that we're going to have to conduct, because before they used to show the day rate. And if you could see the day rate, then you can sort of instantly see how the market is performing, right? In comparison to your car. But we're going to dive right into that in just a second. So now let's look at a couple of other comparables that I would say are similar or maybe compete in the same vein. I would consider this Mercedes E-Class to be one of them. Obviously, it's a newer year, so it's going to be maybe more sought after because it's newer, but we're going to find out. A BMW 2 Series, we will consider that as well. So now we have, a good 4 cars that we're going to look at. And let's see if we can find a 5th car, right? To really just like hone in on the market. And I'm going to pull another Audi as well. And let me just browse a few more. I mean, because you can do this endlessly, but for the sake of this video, typically I will do 60, 70 listings, right? Just to get a super good idea of how well the market is performing. But we will keep it short and sweet and do 5, okay? So now I've opened up each one of these cars in a separate tab. We're going to take a look at, okay, how do these cars perform? So what we're looking for is the day rate, and then also, how are these cars performing for the month? Now you can see the day rate by zooming into the calendar and just hovering over each day to see what is the day rate? So for this Mercedes-Benz E-Class, which the E-Class is on the higher end, it's right below the S-Class, and it's one of the higher end Benzes. I used to have one on the platform. I had an E450, so they do usually fetch a higher day rate, right? So for the month of July, it looks like this car has been booked out for, let's see here, 7, 8, 9 days. So that's pretty good. This host is, before giving Turo their cut, has cleared about $900 this month, and then you take 75% of that on average to see how much they are taking in for the month. So that's 100 and what did we just say here? $2 for this car. Now let's look at a 2019 Audi Q5, whereas I had a 2018 Audi, and this is going for $55 per day. So this is much closer to the price point of my Audi, and this is an SUV, right? So there is definitely a difference in somebody that might be looking to rent a Q5 versus an Audi TT. But again, we're just kind of getting an idea of how the market is performing. Now, one of the reasons why I also, while I'm doing this, like to look at, how these cars are performing is because it tells me how active is the market, right? If the market is active, that means there's demand, and that means there is a lot of room to increase your price points, right? And to make more money, which obviously it's summertime right now, it's peak season, so this is the money-making season, right? And then we'll see a slump in September, and then it should pick back up for the holidays. So for this Audi SUV, we can see roughly it's already booked out for a little over 2 weeks in the month of July. And given that today is July 1st, at the recording of this video, that's really good, right? To already have 2 weeks booked out in advance. Excellent. But again, a killer day rate, $55 per day, is excellent. Now we are looking at a BMW 2 Series, a 2017, which I would say is very similar vein as the Audi TT, and this is going for roughly about $61 to $70 per day. We're just going to hover over like that. And for the month of July, it roughly has about 5 days or so booked up. Okay, so that's okay. That tells me that most likely, if this car was priced just slightly lower at, let's say, the $55 range, it would probably perform a little bit better because it is a little bit older, right? So it's a 2017, and it could probably get more trips at a lower price point. Now, this is where the market gets really wonky, right? This is an Audi Q5. It's a 2022. It's a newer model, and it is listed for $60 per day, with some days, as you can see, around July 4th, it already has a booking, but around that weekend, it's priced a bit higher. So this host is clearly, taking advantage of the fact that we have a holiday weekend coming up. So they are priced a little bit higher. And then for the rest of the month, the price point comes down. So this is a perfect example of exactly what I was talking about before, which is that if you have certain dates on the calendar, right? We know this July 4th weekend, Memorial Day, Labor Day, all the big ones where people are traveling, you hike up your rates, right? So in this case, a $12 jump for the holiday weekend, and you earn a little extra margin. But beyond that, this car is priced at about $60 per day for a larger car. So again, all signs are pointing towards the fact that if I was pricing out my Audi TT right now, I would be somewhere in that $55 range, right? And Turo recommended a minimum of 50 and then the day rate being 73, but all signs are pointing towards the fact that it should be in the 50 range, and that's where it's going to get a lot of traction in the market. So this is why you can't sort of just blindly follow what is suggested or what the automatic pricing might say. You have to double, triple check with what's happening literally in your area or the area that you're serving to get a very clear understanding of, okay, which price points are getting traction, which cars are getting rented out, who has the highest booking frequency just from looking at somebody's calendar, and what price points are working for their cars, and how can you replicate that for your own listing, right? Super important. So would highly recommend that you do that. Now, lastly, let's look at a final listing just to again hone in on our price points. So this is a 2019 BMW 3 Series, and it's going for about $55 to $59 per day. So weekends are $59, weekdays are $55. But for the month of July, it has about 4 days booked out. So that's okay. Today is July 1st. So it doesn't have tons of bookings. So, again, that means that I would have to test maybe that $55 per day rate. See, am I getting bookings? Am I getting traction? And if I'm immediately getting my calendar booked up, then that tells me, okay, maybe there's some room here to bump up my prices, maybe in $5 increments, right? And see if I can get a little more. But if I'm not getting any traction, do I have any room in my budget and what I'm willing to accept to maybe drop that price down to the minimum recommended price of $50 per day as Turo recommended? So these are the really crucial elements when it comes to pricing. And again, it is quite literally where your margins come from. Now, people always ask me, like, oh, what's the best way to do this? And there's tons of like third-party extensions out there, and different people that have come up with different things to find the best day rates for your cars. But till this day, I haven't come across anything that is as accurate as you, as the host of the car, looking in your particular area, right? Because it is so specific to where you are, how that area is performing, and what people are willing to pay in your area versus kind of comparing it against maybe a 50-mile radius or an entire state, right? How do you compare against everyone else that's hosting California? It can really, really vary because there are just different things that go on, right? Different areas have different events, they have different venues, they have different things that draw people in that can also push your day rate up or down, right? So all of those things make a huge difference. And that is how you do your market research and you figure out how my car is going to get the most money per day. Now I have an entire series that has been walking you guys through every element of how to set up your Turo business and how to set up your listings so that you make the most money. But if you want all of this in a very condensed manner that you can quickly get through, because this series is going to be 100 videos, you can check out my website, powerhost.club. I have an entire guide that's going to walk you all through it. That's already there, set up and prep for you guys. But hopefully this gave you some value. And if you like this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button.